It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for your company. We're coming to you live from digital address GA0992539. Now, participants at the first National Justice Conference organized by the International Justice Mission in collaboration with the Bible Society of Ghana calling for regular police patrols on the Volta Lake to deal with child slavery on the water body. They believe this will help deal with issues of child trafficking and other injustices, especially against children. The demands were contained in a communique read by General Secretary of the Christian Council, Reverend Dr. Cyril Fayose, in Accra after the conference.
From the banks of the Volta Lake, it looks beautiful with a lot of economic prospects. But a trip on the Volta Lake reveals harrowing stories of how children as young as 10 are compelled to dive into the lake without protection to untangle nets for their masters. Some of them trafficked from far places to islands around the lake. These and other forms of social injustice necessitated a conference by the International Justice Mission. The conference, which was on the theme Social Justice Key to National Development, brought together personnel of the Ghana Immigration Service, police, judicial service, civil society organizations, students, the clergy, and more. Speaking at the event, Deputy Gender and Social Protection Minister Frida Prempeh called on the National Media Commission and the Ghana Journalists Association to do more to stop what she describes as on-air injustice. She bemoaned the practice where children are forced to confess to being witches and wizards on live television.
I'd want to therefore commend the International Justice Mission for organizing such an event to start a national conversation on social justice. Targeting the church is one sure tool to end human trafficking in our time. As God's people, it is quite unfortunate that the word of God has been tilted to suit what we want to hear. We see numerous injustices meted in the church, where some self-acclaimed pastors mix concoctions for church members to drink in the name of miracles. Some churches has become rather a ground for grave abuses and misconduct, where children are forced to confess on camera about accepting that they are witches and wizards. All sorts of acts are shown on our media, which is a source of worry, including false doctrines. I would like to use this medium to appeal to the National Media Commission, the Standard Board Authority, and the Ghana Journalists Association to help us monitor the contents that are aired on our airwaves. The media platform are being used to show ways for quick money rituals, short way to success in the name of miracles.
Wife of the Vice President of Ghana, Samira Baumia, said despite limited resources, Ghana is making significant strides to combat child trafficking.
So the question is, why is it happening still? It means that people are conniving in communities, so people are not speaking up about it, people are not standing up against it. The government of Ghana is taking significant steps to address the issue of human trafficking, despite limited resources. Ghana has increased its law enforcement efforts by prosecuting and convicting an increased number of traffickers, including several convictions related to forced labor on the Volta Lake.
A communique read on behalf of participants called for regular police patrols on Lake Volta to effectively deal with the problem of child trafficking and the use of children for hazardous work on the lake. Here is General Secretary of the Christian Council, Reverend Dr. Cyril Fayose.
We need more accountability, and we need to use the resources that are available and utilize them in an efficient manner. Institutions and organizations should be supported. Police must be resourced with appropriate equipment, including boats to patrol the lake and enforce the laws. Social welfare needs to be supported at the district, regional, and national levels with the requisite training and logistics. Challenges in the fight against child trafficking. The primary challenges include, 1, denial that there is actually an issue. 2, inadequate budgetary allocation. 3, interferences from people of influence in child trafficking cases that are being prosecuted. there's a need for more trafficking-specific shelters. And then 5, the laws are sufficient, but implementation and enforcement must be increased.
Now, lawyer Martin Pebu says the state must take up financial responsibility for the health care of the 18-year-old girl who was allegedly kidnapped and raped by 2 self-styled pastors in Aflao. He explains the incident amounts to domestic violence since the alleged perpetrators lived in the same house with the victim. Thus, the Domestic Violence Support Fund must cater for her finances. We'll hear from him shortly, but first, the victim, 18-year-old Precious, not her real name, is still traumatized by the incident weeks after she was rescued from her captors. Her parents say she's now become suicidal and is struggling to recover for the 4-month-long ordeal. Kamla and Ivy Setoji have more in this report.
After all this, my dad has been going through ups and downs to make sure that I get a better treatment. But that is not what I want. What I want is that justice should be served. They shouldn't just go scot-free. You see, when they go scot-free, it happens that it will continue repeating itself again and again and again, and nobody will be saying anything about it. I want I myself to be the last, because I don't like the way I'm feeling, and I don't want someone else to go through that same pain.
It's been weeks, nearly a month after she was rescued, but 18-year-old Precious is still battling the scars of a 4-month-long experience of multiple sexual abuse at the hands of her captors.
They usually beat me with planks when they want to have sex with me every day. After this, they find out that I was months pregnant, and those boys checked, and then they gave me a drink. It's in form of a water, but it's bitter, and when you take it, your stomach gets very hot and you started feeling very bad.
The 2 men, George Andrews and Maxwell Peter, who posed as pastors before kidnapping her, have been remanded and are set to reappear in court on September 16. Now, Precious's family is struggling to cater for the medical bills of the 18-year-old. Her mother says all her savings from operating a restaurant along the Aflao border have been spent trying to restore her to normalcy.
All that I have labored for years, since April, 21 of April, Easter Sunday, till today, all my money is finished. From this hospital to another.
Let's now hear from lawyer Martin Pebu, who says the state must take care of her health care cost. He spoke earlier on News Desk.
The law provides that it is the state's responsibility. So I'm talking about the Domestic Violence Act 2007, Act 732. It says that victims of domestic violence are entitled to free medical care. I know for a long time we didn't implement the provisions, even though, the law itself has been part of our law. So eventually, when I was compelled to go to court, and sometime in 2017, the court affirmed what is the law. That is to say that government should implement the law. That is to say also that government should activate the fund. As we speak now, there is about 20-something thousand Ghana cedis in the fund. That's the account, or call it the fund. The sum currently in the fund is very small. So recently, on the 2nd of August, the Domestic Violence Coalition, we had a meeting with the president where we pressed forward the demands that government should do more, so that the government should put in a lot more money. We requested that we put in 500,000 Ghana to start with. So the president accepted the proposal. He had his gender advisors. The Attorney General was present, the Minister for Gender, Deputy Minister of Education, quite a number of ministers and all that at the Flagstaff House. So currently we are pushing things, follow-up meetings and all that, so that the budget makes provision for that sum, so that hopefully at least in the next budget cycle starting in January, we see a marked improvement.
Away from Precious' story, the Ghana Book Publishers Association say their members are in serious financial distress, having printed textbooks worth 15 million cedis in anticipation of the academic year, which is now, and the books have now become worthless as a result of the new curriculum. At a press briefing yesterday, President of the association, Elliot Ejari, said the situation would have dire consequences on many others who depend on the book industry for survival.
UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report, the policy paper 23, makes a very strong case that every child needs a textbook. Okay. Secondly, from all research that we have come across, it's said that next to an engaged and prepared teacher, a good and well-designed textbook is the best thing to improve student achievement. And it's not contested. It's not something that's contested. I mean, if you read any report from the World Bank on textbooks, it says that the textbook is the teacher's next best, the student's next best friend. Because when they go home, that's what they engage in. When they are doing independent study, that's what they're engaged in. So, I mean, this whole idea that textbooks are just an added on really is something that we took great exception to. I think that it's important that we emphasize that textbooks are very critical. Unfortunately, in our planning, the textbooks are not going to be in place at the same time as we are implementing the policy. But every effort is being made to make sure that the textbook get in early. That's a more reasonable way of approaching it than to say that.
In response to the concerns of the Association, Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Opoku Amankwa, said the publishers must find innovative ways of selling their books, insisting at the moment there's no contract between GES and the publishers.
Well, the new curriculum comes with the key area in that curriculum is the pedagogy or the approach to the teaching and learning. But as far as we are concerned, the content of if you take mathematics, for example, we will never stop teaching addition and subtraction. You know, the topics will always remain the same. So any material, you can even go online now and access some material. But once you have that material, as a teacher, what you need is the approach. And this approach is what we put in the training that we give to them, plus the resource pack that I'm talking about, which has all the samples as to how to teach and all that. So I think what the publishers need to do is to find very innovative ways of selling their materials. Very innovative ways of selling their materials. As far as the content is concerned, there's no problem with it. You know, the approach to it, which is supposed to come in a teacher's handbook, is what is very important. So they should find innovative ways of packaging and repackaging the content, which is virtually the same, and then I believe they can make a good sale.
Away from the education sector, 3 Ghanaians have been injured in xenophobic riots in South Africa. A statement issued by Ghana's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration said the Ghanaian mission in Pretoria is ensuring the injured Ghanaians receive the necessary medical attention. 5 Ghanaians who do not have resident permits have also been arrested and detained at the Sunnyside police station in Pretoria. Officials of the High Commission have visited the police station to provide consular assistance to the detained Ghanaians. In a related development, South Africa's High Commissioner to Ghana, Lulu Nwana, says police in South Africa have everything under control after violence against immigrants broke out in that country. Madame Nwana blamed the violence largely on poverty and joblessness. She condemned the attacks and says police have been deployed to all hotspots. She spoke to Malik Abbas Dabo.
Our president has condemned these attacks. He has condemned the violence and crime that is taking place. It is taking place in certain spots or certain areas around Johannesburg, around Durban. It's not all over the country. The majority of the people are safe in South Africa. And as of yesterday, the report we received is that the police have everything under control. They have been deployed in the hotspots and they are monitoring the situation. If there are more reinforcements, our government will add more forces. You see, you look at the US dollar is coming down. You look at the CD is coming down. You look at the rand is coming down. It's the economy. It's the economy in the continent. It's, you know, our economies will fluctuate, but at this point in time, petrol is rising, the food prices are rising in South Africa. So people are feeling the pinch. So it is true that there is that stress that is caused by, and also we have high unemployment rate that is caused by poverty and also the rising cost of living.
Since 2008, when these attacks reached a certain peak, and then to 2015 they repeated, are there any specific steps that the government is taking to deal with the attacks and the looting specifically, apart from just creating opportunities, employment opportunities, helping people to start and grow their businesses and all of that? In terms of dealing with the attacks, is the government doing anything specific?
Well, you know, when crime comes, you don't expect it and you can't plan for it. It's sporadic. It's like here in Ghana when you have a kidnapping. You don't expect it. You can't plan for it. So, but the government, once it has happened, it takes steps and it acts immediately. And right now, as I said, there is calm because the government has sent the police and is ready to reinforce, is monitoring that situation.
You're watching Joy News Today with me, Bernice Abubedulan. So still to come, a Millennium Development Authority commissioned report found no evidence of fraud against the power distribution services. We'll bring you the details shortly. But 10 years of celebrating God's goodness. Will bring you the latest from Adum Praise as we prepare for the event later tonight. Kindly stay for details shortly. Now, a Millennium Development Authority commissioned investigation into the PDS scandal has found no evidence of fraud against the power distribution company. Joy News has exclusively secured a copy of the report, which also cleared officials of Midday of any wrongdoing. The NDC minority in Parliament is already raising questions about that report. Here's more in a News Desk report.
We have not identified any information to suggest that either PDS, Calbank, Danwell and/or personnel from Midday committed or conspired to commit fraud or other malfeasance in relation to the demand guarantees. A direct quote from the investigative report commissioned by the Millennium Development Authority into the PDS scandal. Government had suspended the concession arrangement with the PDS after it found breaches in the demand guarantees, a prerequisite for the concession agreement. The Midday commissioned report, exclusively secured by Joy News, say PDS, Calbank, Danwell and/or personnel from Midday had no basis to question the validity of the payment securities as of March 1st, 2019. Qatar-based insurance firm Al Qut had rejected the validity of the demand guarantees, claiming the officer who signed the deed was not authorized to do so. The report also details how the conditions surrounding the demand guarantees approved by Parliament were changed with the approval of the Vice President, Dr. Baumia. The investigation also showed that ECG wrote to the Attorney General seeking urgent confirmation of whether there will be the need for cabinet approval and parliamentary ratification for the amendments to the transaction agreement and document as a result of the changes. The report says the Attorney General's opinion letter, which was received on March 1st, 2019, implied that there was no need for cabinet approval nor parliamentary ratification. One major question now remains, with insurance firm Al Qut still maintaining that the demand guarantees are not valid. What happens to that critical condition precedent that required PDS to have a demand guarantee as a primary basis for the concession arrangement?
Well, that was a News Desk report. The minority in Parliament is raising questions about aspects of the report. It also found that PDS used revenues collected from customers to pay off a $7 million loan they had taken to settle fees for raising the payment securities, which was a condition for the concession agreement. Joy News can also confirm the government delegation sent to Qatar to verify the $12.25 million demand guarantee posted by the power distribution services from Qatari insurance firm Al Qut did not issue a valid guarantee on behalf of PDS. This is contrary to a Millennium Development Authority Commission investigation, which you just had details of, seeking to clear PDS of any wrongdoing. Government suspended the concession agreement with the electricity distributor on July 30 after it found breaches in the demand guarantee. Now, the 5-member committee tasked to investigate the issue has sent a report to government. We'll be sharing details with you shortly. My colleague Malik Abbas, who is head of our investigative desk, joins me with details. So Malik, very little is known about the government team that was constituted to investigate this matter. Who are the members of the committee?
Well, the committee was led by Interior Minister Ambrose Derry. He had the Deputy Attorney General Godfrey Dami as a member. ACPP Frederick Ejay, he's head of Interpol at the CID, that's the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service. He was a member. The Chief Superintendent Regina Inchua Tenge, she is head of Financial Forensic Unit at the CID. She was part of this investigation. And Ofosuchi Tete Kujoji, the special advisor at the Minister of Finance to the Minister of Finance. So these were the 5 members that went, and their terms of reference were essentially 4. And these were to ascertain whether Al Qut authorized the insurance, the issuance of the guarantees on behalf of PDS in favor of the Electricity Company of Ghana, and to ascertain whether Al Qut issued the type of guarantee that PDS presented to the government of Ghana, and to establish whether Al Qut ever issued any form of guarantees to ECG, and if so, on whose authority. The last term of reference was to establish whether Al Qut had a guarantee in place for ECG as of March 1st, 2019. So these were the people, and these were their terms of reference that they went given to Doha, and they arrived on Doha on August 7. We know that, and they met with 6 members of Al Qut. And if I may just give you some of the names that they met with, there's Ahmed Rafi Al Imadi. He is the chief executive of Al Qut. There's Osman Hag Musa, and Osman Hag Musa is the one who signed the letter on the 31st July, which became the basis for government to take the decision that they took, suspending PDS in the first place. So Osman Hag Musa's name is very familiar with us. Kalia Gopa is the chief financial officer of Al Qut. There's Rahul Kumar, there is Amit Shankar, and Mauricio Suarez. These were the 6 members of Al Qut that met with the Ghana delegation specifically on August 7, 2019.
If you just joined us, we are giving you details of that report by a government delegation sent to Qatar to investigate the PDS scandal. Earlier, we brought you what Mida's report was, but now we are learning, Malik, from this report that Al Qut insists it did not receive any payment from PDS.
Yes. I mean, not only did it not receive any payment, it actually said that there was no application properly before the company for it to issue these guarantees. In the first place, it says Al-Qut, by its own constitutive documents and the constitution that establishes the company as a legal entity, it does not deal in demand guarantees. And that even if an application were to come before it, it may not have been able to issue these demand guarantees because that's not within its line of business. The other issue they raised was that the quantum of guarantees that they issued, that was issued in respect of this PDS, was $350 million. Al-Qut said that it simply doesn't have the capacity to issue guarantees for that magnitude of business. The total asset, the financial value of Al-Qut, the company itself said, according to this report, is $170 million. Now, how can a company which is $170 million be able to issue guarantees for a $350 million business? It says that the $350 million actually consists about 200% higher what its total value is, and therefore it would not have been able to issue this. Now, of course, we know that it has argued that Al-Nouri, who signed the demand guarantee which was submitted by PDS to ECG, it says that, first of all, Al-Nouri didn't have capacity to do this because as a person who was in charge of reinsurance, the capacity that he could approve as an officer in charge of reinsurance was $15 million. But this was $350 million. Therefore, he could not have been able to issue this. Now, given the quantum, they said that this could not have been done without board approval.
Okay.
But what was submitted by PDS, there was no board approval. The person who witnessed it was a low-level employee of the company who witnessed it after Al-Nouri signed.
So, Malik, basically, earlier we brought our audience a report by Midday saying that PDS did no wrong. Can we confidently say that these two reports are countering?
The two do not align perfectly, because if you read that report which you referred to, which we dealt with extensively yesterday, it says in large parts that it did not find that PDS or any of these companies engaged in any wrongdoing, that they did not conspire to defraud the state or defraud ECG. That's what it said. This document is essentially saying, and if I may just tell you what the conclusion is, the conclusion by this document is that there was no valid guarantee, that having listened to all of the things that were said by Al-Qut, their conclusion is that in light of the findings from the visit to Al-Qut in Doha, it is our respectful view that there is no valid or enforceable demand guarantee issued by Al-Qut in support of the LAA, and LAA is the lease assignment agreement, and then BSA is the bulk supply agreement. That these two agreements, there was no valid demand guarantee issued on their behalf.
Thank you very much. Malik Abbas Dabu is head of our investigative desk, bringing us details of a report submitted by a government delegation sent to investigate the PDS scandal in Qatar. You're watching Joy News Today. Coming up shortly in business, the Accra Commercial Court issues 3-day ultimatum for lawyers of the Bank of Ghana to respond to a plea by GN Savings and Loans against its closure. We've got details in a bit. Do stay.